Okay, picture this. You're in a room, a captivating woman walks in, and it's like the whole energy just shifts. You see some guys, right? And they get her attention. It looks completely effortless. But then there are the other guys who kind of just fade into the background. So what's the deal? What is their secret? Well, I'm going to let you in on something. It's not magic, and it's definitely not about looks or having a ton of money. It's about understanding this unspoken game. And today, we're going to break down the psychology of it all into 5 techniques that you can actually learn. And trust me, they will completely change how you handle these moments. Let's dive into the first one. All right, first up, the art of the playful tease. Now, you got to think of this as your secret weapon, because it immediately pulls you out of the crowd. Think about it. Most women, especially the ones who get a lot of attention, are just flooded with the same boring, predictable compliments over and over. A good, playful tease, it just cuts right through all that noise. Just look at the difference here. On one side, you've got those generic lines she's heard a million times. You're so beautiful. It's nice, but it puts her on a pedestal, and honestly, it's kind of boring. But on the other side, you have the playful jab. Now, this isn't about being mean at all. It's about zeroing in on a little quirk or something she's into and creating some fun around it instead of just empty flattery. Here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. See how light and fun that is? It totally works. You're noticing something she's passionate about, but you're framing it in a way that creates this little fun challenge. You're not just mindlessly agreeing with her. You're basically starting a mini game between the two of you. And that is way more memorable than another compliment. So what's actually going on in her head when you do this? Well, you're sending 3 really powerful signals. First, that you're confident. You're not intimidated. Second, you're not walking on eggshells around her. You're being real. And third, and this is a big one, you see her as an equal, as someone you can joke with, not some goddess you have to worship from a distance. Okay, our second technique builds right on top of that. We're talking about strategic physical touch. Now, this is incredibly powerful, but so many people get it completely wrong. They think more is better, but actually the opposite is true. The real key here isn't the quantity of touch, it's all about the quality and the timing. You have to remember this. One single, perfectly timed, subtle touch is worth more than 100 clumsy, awkward ones. You want it to feel natural, almost like an accident. That's what creates a real spark without setting off any alarm bells. It's all about building comfort and connection, not just being physical for the sake of it. And hey, there's actually some cool science that explains why this works so well. A brief, appropriate touch can trigger the brain to release oxytocin. You've probably heard of it. It's called the bonding hormone. It's directly tied to feelings of trust and connection. So you're literally tapping into brain chemistry to build a bond. So how do you actually do this the right way? It's a pretty simple 3-step process. First, you wait for an emotional high point, like right when you're both laughing at a joke. Second, you make very brief contact, just a light, quick touch on her arm. And third, and this part is crucial, you pull away first. This shows you're not needy and that you're in control of the vibe. All right, on to technique number 3, the playful challenge. Now, this one kind of goes against what a lot of people think they should be doing. The classic mistake, right, is to just agree with everything she says. You become a total yes man. But here's the thing. Constant agreement isn't just boring, it can actually come off as kind of desperate. Just think about the difference in energy here. The eager agreeer is always scrambling to find common ground. Oh, you like that? Me too. It can feel a little bit fake. But the playful challenger? He's not afraid to disagree, but, playfully. And what this does is create a really fun dynamic, a little bit of tension that makes the whole conversation way more interesting. So for instance, let's say she mentions she's a great cook. Instead of just being like, oh, that's awesome, you could hit her with this. It's a fun little challenge, right? All of a sudden, you've created this playful rivalry, and it opens the door for a story or a laugh, and for sure, a memorable moment. And here's the real magic behind this. You've totally flipped the script. By playfully challenging her, instead of you trying to get her approval, she suddenly finds herself playfully trying to get yours. She's going to want to prove that she really is a good cook. You've just made yourself the prize. All right, let's get into technique number 4, mastering eye contact. So many people think flirting is all about having the perfect words to say, but they're so wrong. Your most powerful tool is often totally nonverbal, and let me tell you, controlled eye contact is an absolute secret weapon. The key here is finding that sweet spot.
You want to avoid staring, which is just creepy, but you also want to avoid looking away too quickly, which just signals a lack of confidence. The perfect move is what I call the 2-second rule. You catch your eye, you hold it for just 1, 2 seconds, long enough for it to register. Add a little confident smile, and then, this is important, you look away first.
So, what did you just communicate without saying a single word? The message is crystal clear, and it's so powerful. I see you, I'm interested, but my world doesn't depend on your attention. You've just created a little bit of mystery, a little intrigue. You've sparked her curiosity, and now she's wondering who that confident guy is. And that brings us to our final technique. And honestly, this might be the most important one of all, the high-value exit. This is a total game changer. See, how you end a conversation is often way more important than how you start it. Why? Because it determines if she's going to be thinking about you after you're gone. So, take a look at this. This chart basically shows the huge mistake most people make. They wait too long. They stay until the conversation energy hits its peak and then starts to go downhill. They end the interaction on a low point. The pro move? You leave when the energy is at its absolute highest, right when you're both laughing and the connection feels strongest. So what do you actually say? Something simple, smooth, and confident like this. You're not rejecting her at all. You're saying you had a great time, but that you have other things going on. And you're explicitly leaving the door wide open to continue it later. The psychology here is just so powerful. This move signals that you're a high-value guy who has a busy, interesting life. It stops things before they have any chance of getting boring. And most importantly, leaving at the peak creates this kind of psychological cliffhanger. You literally leave her wanting more. Look, these 5 techniques, they aren't about being manipulative. They're about being a better communicator. They're about understanding the subtle, unspoken language that creates real, genuine attraction. This game is always being played, whether you know the rules or not. So, really, the only question left is, are you ready to play?